Hello, here we are. This is a 2018 Mercedes-Benz C300, and today it's calling for a B9 service. I wanted to show you the reading on the screen, but I've already drained the oil, which is one of the services that is included on the B9, but I can't turn the car on because there's no oil in the engine, and that would damage the car. So I can show you the oil. I just drained it out. Here we go. So here's my oil pan. I already took out the filter, and the oil is just down to a drip right now. So I'm just gonna let it drain out so we get all the oil out of it. So this is the oil change portion of the B9 service. Just trying to make a record of it. We can look at the top and see where we are. Okay, when we get on top here, today is, let's see, it's Saturday, May 18th, and it's around 8:24 p.m. and I just started. So here's where I took out the filter, and I'm going to show you the parts I have to install. I opened the oil cap just to allow the oil to drain all the way out, and here's my filter assembly. So I need to take the O-rings off of it, and if you go back to the back of the car, you see I have all my oil here laid out. I got 8 quarts of oil today. I also have the filter, and the filter has the O-rings in there, and it also has the washer. I got some screws for the transmission pan cover. Here's the oil, transmission oil for the transmission fluid change, and here's the oil pan which I bought to. You can see that's the oil pan, because it's recommended that when you change the transmission fluid, you also change the transmission oil. The transmission pan at the bottom. So as you can see, I got the car up here on some ramps that I have, and so I'm just gonna be working on it from this way. So again, this is a record of the B9 service that I'm gonna do. So the first thing is gonna be the oil. Next is gonna be the transmission. I'm gonna rotate the tires. I'm gonna change the filters, the cabin filter and the other filter. I'm also going to bleed the brake fluid, and all of the major activities I will document with a small video just to have a record. So I did reach out to the dealership for this service. One dealer quoted me about $2,100, and another dealer quoted me almost $4,000. So I've been working on cars for probably since I was about 18, and before that I watched my dad work on cars. I picked that stuff up from him. So I was able to purchase all the parts for this job. I have the brake fluid here. I'm going to show it to you in 1 second. All right, here's the brake fluid that I'm going to use to bleed the brakes. And this is Mercedes-Benz genuine fluid. So I have my bleeding mechanism here, which I purchased off of Amazon.com. I already checked to verify that it works. It has a gauge on it. 12 pounds of pressure is the recommended amount while bleeding the brakes. So once I've completed the oil, completed the transmission fluid, then I'm gonna bleed the brakes and then change out the filters. I haven't bought the filters yet, but I will sometime between tonight and tomorrow. But I'll be able to show you where the components are located and show that I actually changed the filter. So let me get started on the oil. I think it should be fully drained by now. So let me get started on that and get that portion of the job finished. Okay, so using my trusty little screwdriver here with a flat tip, it's pretty handy. I was able to remove the O-ring from the top, from the middle, and from the bottom. So I'm gonna get the new O-rings and install them. Okay, here are the new O-rings. So I'm gonna go ahead and install them on the assembly. All right, so the new O-rings have been installed. See, it's right there. And so now I'm gonna install the filter. On top of the assembly. It just slides on into place. And I'll go ahead and put it back in its place. All right, so we're gonna install this inside its position here. I'm just gonna finger tighten it for now. I'll put the final pressure on it with the torque bar to the recommended tension. Okay, everyone, we're back with the B9 service on this C300 Mercedes-Benz. Again, this is for the record that it's completed. We did the oil the last time. Now we're going to do the transmission fluid. I had to get a couple of things before I start this service. One of the things I had to get was this special tool set to drain the fluid from the transmission, and I got that off of Amazon.com. It's like I don't remember how much I paid for it, but it has a special thing here. This tool, you have to put it up inside the transmission. This is to open the plastic knob on the transmission plug, and this is specific to Mercedes-Benz. So I had to get that, and then I got this small torque bar because the nuts are 4 Newton meter, and I only had this big torque bar. So, and this says the minimum on this torque bar is still too much. So got the small torque bar, and the transmission fills from underneath. There's no dipstick or fill hole, so it fills from underneath. And so I have this this pump which I'm going to use to pump the fluid into the transmission. So we're going to get started, and the first thing you have to do is you have to remove the plug off the transmission and then drain the fluid out. We're going to measure the fluid just to make sure that we have enough, and then we're gonna replace the same amount that we have plus a little bit, because when we test it, we have to put it to a specific position so that it can drain down to the correct level. So let's get started. So I'm going onto the car now. Get my light in position. I already removed the protective shield from underneath, from under the transmission. So I'm just gonna move myself up there, and here we have that transmission. So here's the plug that we have to take out, and so I have a pan here to drain the fluid into, and I have some tools here that I'm going to use to remove one of the bolts, because one bolt is in a very precarious position. So I have this number 8 wrench to tackle that bolt, which is all the way in the back here. So I'm going to maneuver to get that one. But first, let's remove the transmission plug. So I'm going to put my pan underneath there, and then I'm going to put this in here. It's a counterclockwise to open it. So let's go ahead and open it. A little bit of fluid is going to drain out when I do that. So let's open it. Okay. Here we go. Some fluid drain out. Just going to secure this plug here. Okay, the fluid is up at a little trickle. So alright, so here's the tool. It goes right up inside the transmission, and there's only one way for it to fit. And that's it. So this is position 1. There's 4 positions, 2, 3, and 4. In order to drain the transmission completely, we have to put it at position number 4. So I'm just going to turn it and all the way to position 4. And out comes all the transmission fluid. So I'm going to let that drain for until all the fluid comes out. I'll be right back. All right, as you can see, the fluid is still draining. It's getting less and less, but I just want to point out what's going to happen next. So the next thing is to start to take off the cover, because we're going to replace this whole cover. The reason why we replace the cover is because the transmission filters are built into the cover. So every time you change the fluid, you have to change the cover. And so we have to take this cover off, and we have a new cover. It's way back at the back there. You can probably see it in the box, the brown box way up there. So we're gonna take this cover off. In order to get it off, the first thing you do is remove this bracket, get it out of the way. And then we have about 10 bolts. 4 in the corners, 2 in the middle, 1 here and 1 at the back, the one that's kind of a little bit obscure. And then we have 2 on this side and then 2 on the other side. So 10 bolts in all. So we have here, okay, we have the cover back on. Now it's time to fill the transmission. So I have this plug here, special plug, that goes into the socket here. And just fits right in there. And we screw this into it. This is the fill plug. Oh, let's just make sure that the fill setting is correct. Okay, so we're gonna put this tool in here, and we can just verify that it's at full setting 1, which is over here, and you can see that it is pointing to 1. Oh. Okay, we've put it setting number 1. So now we'll put the plug in. And put in the fill nozzle. Now, okay, to complete this part of it, I am using a hand pump. There are other types of pumps you can use with it, but I have this hand pump that I'm going to use. And so I'm going to attach the bottom side of the pump to the fill nozzle, and then I'm going to attach this side to the transmission fluid bottle. I have 8 bottles of 8 quarts of transmission fluid lying back there. So I'm just gonna attach this to put this inside the bottle and then just manually pump the fluid into the transmission. Now, if you remember, we took out 5 liters of fuel. So I'm going to pump back in probably a little bit more than 5 liters of fuel. And then I'm going to start the car up, let it run. The transmission has to reach a temperature of 39 degrees before we can check the setting. So when it reaches 39 degrees, we're going to put that tool back inside. We'll disconnect this. The fluid should not flow out because it's on the fill setting. And then we're going to put this tool back in there, and then we're going to set it to number 3, and 3 is to get the right setting. So if we put in a little bit more than 5 quarts, then when we set it to 3, the excess should drain right back out, and then once it reaches the correct setting, it'll stop draining, and then we're done. But if we're not sure, we can add more fuel, more transmission fluid, and then set it back to 3, and then just let it drain out onto the right level, and then we'll be done. So just to recap that, we're going to fill the transmission, at least 5 liters of transmission fluid, and then we're going to start up the car, get the transmission temperature up to 39 degrees. I have an infrared thermometer that I'll use to determine the temperature of the transmission. And once it reaches 39 degrees, then I'll switch the setting to 3, let it drain. I might put some more fluid in, let it drain. And then once it reaches the temperature, once it reaches the level, then we can close everything up, put the covers back on, and the car will be ready to go. Okay, here's 1 bottle of transmission fluid. So I just put the nozzle right down inside there, and then I use this hand pump to pump the fluid in.